What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome to your daily creative reading for September 29th. All right, let's dive in and see where the day takes us. Take flight. Whoa, that was a little close up. Okay. Take flight, and you are loved. I'll read this at the end. Okay. Dear you, there is always more than one side to an argument, two sides, if not more, to every story, and hundreds of ways to be right. Be different, be at odds, and so on. That's so loud. Hundreds of ways to be right. Oh, I love that. Today, we suggest that instead of looking for differences, you find a meeting place of agreement and approach this experience with understanding and compassion. Seek common ground to understand how another person thinks or how an alternative plan might be laid. Stay out of judgment, too. Observe, discern, but accept that others have different stories, experiences, and journeys, and some people might refuse to remain open to another point of view. No matter what, you've been presented with a great opportunity to explore a new way of doing things once common ground is reached. You're attracting people and situations that enrich your life and bring you wonderful things to learn. We love you so much. I love that. So good. Hundreds of ways to be right. Imagine that. Imagine that. The world that we live in is it so prizes the intellectual outcome of being right. Hundreds of ways to be right. Oh, so good. That energy is a whole mood. That is a whole vibe. And a good one, too. Okay. Spirit, what messages do you have for September 29th, please? Messages for September 29th. Two cards came out. 7 of Wands and 9 of Pentacles. This is the call to adventure. It's almost like understanding how you wish to use and expend your energy. This is like knowing which I want to say arguments, but like, wow, this is so many things are coming through. There's like finding common ground on the one hand, right? Understanding what you value about the common ground and refusing to kind of give into lesser, like things that take your energy rather than give it and lend it. Like there's going to be opportunities that they're not all made equal, but it's about finding the common ground within your own energy and finding what it is that you can then give to others from that place. And this also strikes me as like different, like there's so many different ways to be right, to show up accurately. Like this is like, what's true to you, what's true for you. That's really going to be what calls you back home to yourself here. Spirit, what message do you have for this refusal? Interesting. The Empress. This is almost like the birthplace of possibility. Maybe that's scary, the birthplace of possibility. Because if you show up in a way that doesn't need to argue for any limitations, and honestly, when we argue outside of common ground and we argue on behalf of differences, we so too then disconnect from our infinitude, and then it's arguing on behalf of limitation. Really and truly, it can be. And in a roundabout way, at least. And then the Knight of Wands is like, I feel like this is an energy that's kind of disconnected. This is coming across almost as like a Knight of Wands in reverse, where it's like in it for oneself only. And if I'm hearing self-fulfilling prophecy, interesting. Lose if you didn't need to be right. Like, what would that say about your energy? How would your energy shift if you didn't need to be right? Like if you're a doctor, you need to be right. Like that's like a different story altogether. Like that's an important time to be right. But I'm talking about like the hundreds of ways that we can be right I'm assuming that this is pertaining to personal relationships, and romance in particular, but like the ways that we can be right. It's like this is like finding heart-centered common ground and finding opportunities to like looking for opportunities to express that, to express the common ground, the commonality, the things that we have more in common, and reaching for that. I saw a Michael Beckwith post on Instagram the other day where he was talking about finding possibility. And also Michael Beckwith he did an interview with Michael Sandler's Inspire Nation, and he actually said they. He said my he, she's, and theys. I was like, yes. Like we so seldom see it. Seldom see it. And it's just, I was so excited. Sorry if I like yelled in your ear, but it's just, it was so powerful. So I was like, yes, thank you. And also listening to Michael Beckwith speak is always a treat. So there was that too. But back to the common ground thing, he was talking about how like when we envision from limitation, it's like we're envisioning from impossibility. So by turning to the possibility, it's like you're forecasting what you want to be, what you want to see in the world, as opposed to looking at what is. We need to begin to envision differently. Look to the visionaries, look to those looking not just towards the future, but towards the expansion, towards the inclusion, right? We're talking about not just making tables longer, but asking, why do we have a system that relies on tables that we need to make longer? Is there a better way of doing this all together? That's the kind of question that we need to be asking in terms of this common ground. This almost feels like a little bit bigger than just like this kind of feels more like a creative unconscious reading, to be completely honest. Ooh, this is quite lovely. So the thing that could become a tower if it goes unchecked, the literal tower, and the Fool, and the Six of Wands. I'm getting from here that it's like, you need to trust in what's becoming. You need to trust in the part of you that's becoming. And that's not just, the possibilities of success with this Fool, because it's a leap with possibilities, not just the possibilities of success, but the leaning into that, and I guess acclimating almost. I don't know, it's interesting, because I think about it in terms of like a stratosphere that the Fool is operating within, right? It's like a stratosphere, where it's like you're acclimating to that altitude, and you don't know that there's going to be a success with it, and it might come as a shock to you. It might come as a little bit of a shock to you or surprise you. But I feel like this is a tower that's more of a delight than it is like a terror. Like you're not looking for like the holy shit bar. You're looking more for like the steering wheel. Yeah, sun on the bottom. That's like the protagonist that's coming through here, is the protagonist as the light that you're finding. And it's like the sun, what does the sun not cover? The sun it covers everything. Even on days that are cloudy, that sun is still shining from above the clouds. So it's like there's nothing that the sun doesn't touch, right? Does it cast shadows? Yes. But there's nothing the sun doesn't touch. So it's like finding that common ground, that commonality, that light within, from which we all are sourced, number one. Number two, from which we all generate a particular kind of fire. And it's like when you're in it for you, this is like in it to win it, right? Um, and like people say that this is like the hit it and quit it card kind of player energy, but that's what I feel like when you can have that energy translated into work, into projects, into things you're working on, friendships, whatever, where it's like you're in it for reasons, but not necessarily reasons beyond your own satisfaction. Like it's disconnection from the bigger things, like that legacy energy, that 10 of Pentacles. What is it that you're creating that's bigger than you? And it's participation in that as well. So I feel like the antagonist position, let's see what we got here. Spirit, can you give me an illumination of this antagonist energy? Something keeps flying out here. The wheel. This isn't, this is to say that allowing life to expand you is what is also going to help you step into this awareness. Because I feel like this is cultivating an awareness that's going to come in handy. Cultivating an awareness that's going to come in handy. And come in handy not as in like, oh, isn't that neat? But like something more foundational and fundamental. Yeah, something foundational and fundamental. Specifically because we have Pentacle energy here, as well as the Empress. So it's like this, a lot of birth and new energy. So that's like how you're building the new. And I feel like this energy, it's like, it's almost an expansion of consciousness, or consciousness expansion. And the wheel energy here is this like stepping into your greatness, stepping into that. And you can see and your greatness is not a threat to other people when you're in that place of common ground and commonality. And it's true, there are times where you certainly feel your difference. I walk into a room, and as it stands right now, I'm often the only trans person there. I'm the only trans person there. So it's very easy to look to differences and to say that is what's going to define me. But it's not what defines me. It's what adds this like shading and punctuation mark and the adverbs, the adjectives, all of that. but I get to decide whether I let that entirety of a feeling reduce me and take away from who I am. And I feel like that's kind of what this is. It's like there's things that are bigger than you in terms of fate and destiny and all of that. But then it's like, how are you taking that and translating it into a more granular expression every day? And you can really feel like fate isn't on your side, which is funny because it's not, it just is. like, but I think this is also an expansion too, right? Like, oh wow, okay, that's beautiful. Right now, this week, Jupiter. Oh, that's itchy. Jupiter is as close. It's like super close to the Earth. Like it's as close as it's been or going to get for a while. Like very close in its orbit. And it's what I'm seeing is like how close are you letting yourself get to the expansion of your sun? So it's like how close are you getting to the sun, which is your expansion, and in that wheel. How close are you letting the light get in, or like get close to you? The light of your dreams. But it's not, and it's this is where you might be disconnecting yourself from what you are trying to manifest, is where you're finding the common ground. You need to find the common ground between yourself and the thing that you're reaching for. You know, I would look at musicians and things like that I loved when I was a kid, or even writers, and I thought to myself often, like, the thing that differentiates me from people who, you know, have like, and fame is weird, you know, I don't, I'm uneasy with it, because I feel like I don't know, it reflects so many different things, and we can often project our best selves onto other people instead of accepting that we are our best selves and accepting those traits within us, right? So I have an uneasy relationship with the concept of it, beyond like theorizations of like the spectacle and things like that, and the ways that that can become its own thing. But if we look for the common ground between where we want to be and where we are, that's kind of the bridge. Like, you know, Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 hours being what gets us from point A to point B skill wise, you know, in terms of beginner to expert. So when we get an expert is all relative as well. But I mean, again, unless you're a doctor, like that, it's very important. That designation is incidentally very, very important. But when I think about this common ground, I think about what is it that makes, you know, for example, like the Travis Barkers of the world, the drumming world, right? Different from the beginners. Well, he plays drums so much that there's like a skill with it. It's like he's like the drum whisperer, that he's like amazing at it, right? I've liked Blink-182 since I was in high school, so deal with it. It's fine. But just to like listen to the beats that he conceives of through the music, it's like, it's just incredible. And it's like, you know, so many people can reach that skill level, but so many people don't want to, so they don't look for the common ground between that person that they've projected this talent that seems so out there and so much to do with this like fated, like destined energy that's like outside of them. They give it that label because then you don't have to look for the common ground. Then you don't have to look for the light within you and the ways that you can do that too. So it's almost like finding the common ground between where your dreams are and where you are right now, and seeing that that's actually a bridge from point A to point B. And that it's not like you don't have to take leaps and bounds to get there. It's just like baby steps along the way, right? Baby steps along the way, because it's that 10,000 hours. I just saw the Knight of Pentacles flying out here. Yeah, it was the Queen of Cups. These energies came out because I was thinking about like progress, right? Like progress over perfection and like the slow process. And what popped out on the bottom of the deck was the Justice card, the Knight of Pentacles, and the Queen of Cups, where it's like this like emotional fulfillment and you know, this sense of all is right in the world, all is well. But it's that slow progression forward, and I feel like that's kind of the challenge here. It's showing up in the challenge position. Spirit, what message do you have for my daily creators for the 29th of September, please? This could also be projects that you're working on where you're like, I can't skill up to that. Are you kidding me? And yes, you can. Like, the biggest difference, I think about this with writing. Like, I am low-key obsessed with how we use words. They're so important. They're so important. You know, I think about the economy of words and how quickly we can injure with them, but how quickly, too, we can heal with them. And the ways that if we, you know, just discourse analysis in terms of upholding systems that don't allow people to really thrive. I feel like words are so important. But, you know, my use of them and my love of them, that's like a lifetime thing that's developed and been cultivated. We all have things that feel more comfortable to us than other things, right? So for me, it's words and leaning into that. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how to put that into a book format, and it's interesting and anyways, but yeah. But what I'm seeing here is like, not everyone is going to want that for words. Some people it's going to be dance. Some people it's going to be cooking, for example. Other people it's going to be a whole bunch of other things. So this is also where people will try to talk you out of shit when they don't want you to participate in something because they can't find the common ground between the two of you. So they will try to talk you out of your dreams and something that you're good at, because then that means that the threat that they perceive in you, the difference as opposed to the common ground, is gone, right? So then, they've talked you out of it successfully, cool, then you can stop, you can start something new, you can do something else, blah, 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 whatever. But then you're out of the playing field, and that feels more comfortable for people. So it's also about balancing those things too, and trusting the information that comes to you from within you, this Queen of Cups energy, about that, and the situations where that's true too. And it's being discerning about that. This is part of the call, right? Being discerning, because you're worth it. You wouldn't have the dream if you were not also then capable of having it come to fruition. But what I love about this common ground introduction in this card, talking about that common ground, yeah. So I'll read it out here. Seek common ground to understand how another person thinks or how an alternative plan might be laid. Stay out of judgment too. Observe, discern, but accept that others have different stories, experiences, and journeys, and some people might refuse to remain open to another's point of view. No matter what, you've been presented with a great opportunity to explore a new way of doing things once common ground is reached. You're attracting people and situations that enrich your life and bring you wonderful things to learn. So it's also trusting that too, and not letting the fear, like I've experienced it where people have said, do you want to be doing this? Are you sure? And it's like they're not really interested in whether it's good for me or what I want to do. It's because they're wanting to take you out of the game. So I always have to approach things with a discerning eye, but don't let that close you off completely. Even now, some people will ask me, and I've experienced this specifically when I was coming out as queer in the church. So I found that it was like coming out, it's like people would be like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because they weren't interested in what queerness meant to me. They weren't interested in that. They were interested in what their perception of who I was relative to their beliefs. So they, of course, would try to talk you out. They would try to talk me out of it all the time for a period of time before I was like, yeah, no, thank you. Right? So it's like understanding that is something that takes place as well. And common ground can also be found in those moments. But first, you have to identify your value and your worth, and understanding that it's safe for you to take a step back and say, no, thank you. I can say no, thank you with as much love as I can muster in my being, because anything that reduces your humanity to a question mark and does not consider your curiosity and why something might be important to you, is it worth your time? Is it worth your energy? And that's it here, because you are showing up with immense worth, immense energy. And this isn't to malign, people who, it's not meant to malign the church at all. My perception of that and my experience of that is just that people, and even outside of that, right? People will often see through the lens of what they think is best for you. So you have to show up knowing what's best for you, and being discerning about that. Don't close off completely, because then that means that something about that's been unhealed. And I'm working on that right now as well, not with queerness in particular, but because that's what one and done. Well and truly good. But what I use that example to mirror some other things, and to say this is something that we kind of all go through, right? Especially when it comes to spiritual awakenings that people don't fully understand when they happen to others, and you kind of wake up from the dream, but you're still within the dream. And that's where intuition starts to really fire on all cylinders, and bring about this beautiful cascade of information through the most unlikely sources. And it's just like life, you come to life in a completely different way, and where people fear the dark, that's part of the light too. And you don't fear asking questions that take you to places that make other people squirm because they've made judgments on it. It's like you're able to do so many different things. And that's just another example, but it's just like, it's important to be discerning, but not to close off completely, right? So when it comes to directions that you take, that was like a lot of channeling. Oh my goodness. Okay. Bit. Spirit, what message? How are we overcoming this? There were cards that were outside here. They got flipped up, but there's quite a few of them. Yeah, no. no vibe off them. Spirit, how are we overcoming this challenge? What's the overcoming here? Five of Cups, releasing disappointment. Releasing disappointment. And we really do have to discharge this energy, right? When we look for common ground with others, when we look for the ways that we're more similar than we are different, while honoring differences too, because I like it when people recognize my transness and they recognize my pronouns, and I get compliments on my voice being deeper, or like one day at work the other day, one of my coworkers, I can't remember what it was, but there was like a cookie in the back and I had one. And we made the comment and said at the same time, I was like, because I'm a growing boy. And she said it at the same time. So it was like, it's stuff like that. Like, I like it when people recognize that difference. Sometimes when it adds to humanity, when it adds to my humanity and theirs, right, in the seeing of it. But the disappointment that we feel sometimes when we can't find that common ground, and when we see that search for common ground, even with our dreams and things we want to bring into the world as like the things that set us apart from it. It's like we have to discharge the disappointment that can come when we've placed expectations on people and things where we assumed the common ground was there. We made an assumption that the common ground just existed, and now we have to look for it because something in us has changed or something in someone else has changed, which is okay when that happens. That's what happens in life, right? But it's finding ways to navigate that. Spirit, what additional message? What are we waking up to? Our wisdom and knowledge, the big picture. I think that we're analyzing with greater clarity. But there's also, it's kind of a no BS view of things, right? It's a no BS view of things where you're integrating your truth and you're standing in the power of your perception. You're standing in there's like, your thoughts are so powerful, and it's like you're not shying away from that, and that's what you're waking up to right now. That's kind of what is being awakened in this sort of hero's journey spread, where you're seeing that really clearly. You're not being like, oh, I'm gonna, and then you just like, you're like, nope, there's no bypassing. It's like an inventory. It's like you're seeing this and yourself, and I think it's freeing you in a way. It's freeing you. I thought I heard altitude. I think with the Fool card here. And that's where it's interesting that this is like up, right? Like, it's like there was an altitude that you were reaching with the Fool, where it's like the new requires a bigger view, a longer take. And it's very tempting to see the common ground as not being worth it. And because we live in a world that rewards individualizing things to the extent where it's like, follow your passion, which is so true. I firmly believe it. I think though, and it could just be I have like a stellium in Aquarius, and then I also have 4 placements and, significant celestial placements and planets in the 11th house. So this is my community orientation speaking, right? But it's like when you focus solely on yourself, that's great to the extent that you know who you are, but we're all connected. we are one. Like there's a oneness that permeates everything. So when we are seeing the forest for the trees, it's important to understand that mentality. It doesn't take away from who someone is as an individual. It doesn't take away from that, but we have to understand, and this is part of that Myth of Normal book by Gabor Mate, where he and his son talk about this in terms of like, it's a culture that rewards things in a kind of backwards way, and it creates it creates situations that reward re-traumatizing behaviors. Or he talked about ADHD actually, which I have, but he talked about it in terms of like, it can often be a trauma response where we are constantly looking to avoid the feeling within us whenever it comes up. And Christina Lopes talked about this in one of her videos that she did. I think it was one of her lives that she featured. But it was like, it's like when your container is a little shaky, right? You can't, and this is where, again, it's like the common ground that we talk about doesn't just apply to the forest for the trees mentality. It doesn't just apply to finding common ground with other people. You can also turn this logic, this way of seeing and feeling around at yourself, right? Finding common ground with your inner child, finding common ground with the past part of you that you haven't forgiven yet for mistakes that you've made, right? And mistakes are all just lessons, right? They're all just lessons. So it's like, how can you turn that towards yourself, and allow that to be the facilitator for a depth of compassion and a breadth of mercy for yourself. So what's the main theme here that we're looking at, Spirit? Why wouldn't it be this card? Your intuition. It's almost like seeing with a different set of eyes. Seeing with a different set of eyes. See through the eyes of spirit, and that's where you're going to find the common ground. That's where you're going to find the light in yourself and other people. See with eyes that are not related to the ones in your face. See with, call it your third eye, whatever. Your heart. See with a different set of eyes. What would my heart energy think about this, or say about this, or feel about this, or this person or this situation? What would my throat energy have to say about this? What would my root energy have to say about this? And then it's also, and John DeMartini talks about this in his book, Count Your Blessings. He talked about this method where and I think Louise Hay talked about this as well, referencing an Emmett Fox thing, where it's like you have, the person who hurt you, they walk across a stage, and part of the healing process is understanding that as much as someone might have hurt you, you've also embodied the same behavior somewhere in your life at one point or another that person then hurt you with. And, we're removing violence out of this. We're removing those things, because that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the disappointments that accumulate, that can then, stymie our growth. So it's like when you see that's common ground. That's forgiveness, really. That's what it comes down to. So common ground is forgiveness. But again, you've got to see with a different set of eyes. You have to see with a different set of eyes, because it's like building a new foundation and a new way of approaching working with other people, connecting with other people. Yeah, deeply heart-centered movement forward. And that's where it's like you need a separate set of eyes to do it. Not like one's outside, not like you do this one. Can you do, like, I need a second set of eyes on this? It's not like that. It's seeing completely differently. See through the eyes of something that's as if it's been healed. See through the eyes of forgiveness, grace, compassion, mercy, those things, those big ones, right? And don't forget to turn those set of eyes back on yourself so that you can then behold yourself with the same regard and the same light too, because that's really important. But that's where I'm so grateful to Spirit for that. That common ground is really finding forgiveness, because ultimately that's what we're doing, right? And those processes, I recommend checking it out. The book Count Your Blessings by John DeMartini, Louise Hay, I think it's The Power Within You or Heal Your Life, either one of those two, talking about this. And she references Emmett Fox in particular. I think it's Emmett Fox. And the healing modality that comes from it. Anyways, I might have that wrong, but that's okay. But that's where we're finding common ground with those who hurt us so that we can extend forgiveness. And we don't have to shout it from the rooftops either, right? Because sometimes it's safe to approach that from a retrospective, way, but then other times it's not. And I do not recommend putting your beautiful heart, your precious healing and healed heart, in harm's way just to say, I forgive you. Sometimes it's the one that you do for yourself. Sometimes that's the common ground you find for yourself, right? And that's what you have to carry with you, because it's not always safe to share it with others, right? So I'm just going to clarify it quite briefly. I feel like this is a pretty straightforward reading. What are some big themes to keep in mind, Spirit? Yeah, moving through some heartbreak. That's it fell on the High Priestess and the King of Swords, but the Three of Swords, where it's really like you have to see through the eyes of something beyond heartbreak and disappointments that have happened in the past, even betrayals, right? You have to see past it and see through it, like seeing through the eyes of a healed heart. What would that be like? Even if you don't know or don't have all the answers, just be open. Just be open to the possibility of that healing taking place. Be open to that. Seven of Wands, Nine of Pentacles. We have the Queen of Wands coming out here on all of this beautiful energy in the High Priestess, and Ace of Pentacles. Oh my gosh, and the Wheel. These are, oh, sorry. That was probably loud in your ear. I'm sorry. So Seven of Wands, Nine of Pentacles, Queen of Cups, Knight of Pentacles, Justice, and the Five of Cups. It's like knowing your worth and not settling for less despite disappointments, and understanding that disappointments are a catalytic energy that allows you to be inside integrity with yourself. I think that's how the Queen of Wands is showing up, is like deeply inside integrity. And again, this is where it's going to be crucial. The energy of this being inside integrity with yourself is so connected to the eyes through which you're seeing with this High Priestess card here. And it will be part of this fated energy. Like that's how fate kind of creeps in a way that's healing, as opposed to feeling like all of this is happening outside of my capacity. Where new opportunities that are really solid and grounded and nourishing to you, that are something that you truly value and that's important to you, it's going to come through this perspective shift. And it's a perspective shift, but it's also one that lands in your heart center as well. Like the High Priestess is, I think, connected to all energy centers, tends to be more connected to the intuitive and like the higher energy centers, but still. The Empress, Tower, Fool, and Six of Wands. Spirit, what message do you have for my daily creatives? The Emperor. This is possibly counterpart energy. We have the Empress and the Tower, Fool, and Six of Wands, and the Emperor. I feel like right now you have more power than you know to alchemize as you give birth to this new, and you see from this higher altitude. You're seeing from a different altitude, which means too that the air that you're breathing is slightly different, and you've acclimated to that as well. Here comes my kitty. Hey, baby girl. Eva. Oh, she's so cute. She's like, I didn't know it was tarot time. Okay. Knight of Wands, the Sun, and the Wheel. Spirit, can you clarify this energy briefly for me, please? And I feel like this really is coming across as like, if you're calling in a relationship to you, this is pretty big. It's almost like I'm getting this as like a relationship skill, like the common ground, not like, how do we word it? Sounds so basic, like finding common ground with a partner. Yes, that's going to be important. But this goes beyond that, where it's like you're seeing the things that might annoy you about yourself instead of projecting them in relationships, friendships, family, whatever. And it's lending a certain sense of stability, right? It's lending a certain sense of stability, and it's anchoring your relationships in a different way so that you can show up as your most powerful selves, right? Whomever this is, too, be it a partner, friendships, or just you standing up in your energy and power yourself, right? I'm just going to clarify this Wheel card. Spirit, can you clarify the Wheel, please? Strength, more fire. This is a lot of fire. But that's, yeah. It's interesting because I'm getting that confidence is coming from this. This is something that's going to lend a sense of confidence because you're going to see things differently. And in the process of relating to them differently, you are going to be changed as well, which is possibly part of this Tower energy. It's a gentle Tower with the Fool and the Six of Wands. But it's coming across as the way it's like giving up the power struggle. Like you're no longer fighting fate. You're no longer fighting your conception, the way you've conceptualized fate, the way you've conceptualized destiny as something outside of you, the way you've conceptualized yourself related to common ground, the connectedness of yourself to other people, and the ways that you might have needed them, right? The ways that you might have needed them. And not need, that's the truth. Yeah. I'm going to put the Ace of Swords there because I think that this is like, it's connecting to a deeper part of your truth. And common ground isn't just about, again, it's not just about looking for similarities and differences. Like you're looking at two pictures and you're like, what's the difference here and here? It's not like that necessarily only. That can be part of it for sure. But it's also being willing to humble yourself before the feet of the altars on which you sacrifice, yourself for the greater good, thinking that that's going to connect you to something bigger, or the altars upon which you've demanded other people sacrifice parts of themselves to meet you in this sort of companionate capacity, right? And that is its own kind of disconnect. Yeah, what's the affirmation that you've got for my wonderful creative collective today, Spirit? I give what I want to receive. And this isn't, this kind of is also the common ground. Oh, I just hit myself in the face. This is also a little bit of the common ground. I give what I want to receive, where it's recognition of the oneness, recognition of that as a thread in this big tapestry of truth that you're either aware of or awakening to. Awakening to, just because it's, you know, we see the King of Swords in the awakening to position. So I give what I want to receive. We need to give what we want to receive. When you experience any lack in your life, ask yourself, what am I not giving? Oh, what am I not giving? And sometimes it's just the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes that's as simple as it is. Occam's razor is a real thing, right? We don't want to overcomplicate things because we throw it up into our mind space and then disconnect it from the heart space, because what we need to do is feel through what it means to be compassionate with other people and give them the benefit of the doubt in terms of this common ground, right? So it's like, it's not taking away the intellect and logic completely, right? It's not head over heart, and it's not putting those two at odds, but it's the integration of the two, right? Just ask yourself, what am I not giving? And showing up without pretense, standing in your full, beautiful power, giving up the power struggle, right? Because fate will win. Fate will win, not because it's happening to you, but because it's happening for you. And if you wrestle with this meaning, if you wrestle with the meaning making instead of just trusting yourself and trusting in the way that everything is playing out, that you're part of something that truly is a loving unfolding, you don't need to be in all the details. And so you can give more freely. So you can be giving, and not just of, you know, resource or time or things like that in terms of volunteering or whatnot. You're able to be giving of your energy that's really in a way that's authentic and that does not require a power struggle as the price of membership, right? The price of playing the game, right? Okay, so you are loved. Dearest you, we here on the other side have one important thing to declare. Love is the answer to literally everything. I love that. Love is the answer to literally everything. We don't necessarily mean romantic or erotic love, although they are wonderful, but something above and beyond that. Everything alive in the world was first created by love. Spirit sends love to animate life and birth it into existence. Empress. Love is without condition, and it is based in reverence and a fierce and joyful respect for life. Love thrives when you focus on it, and we want you to turn away from anything that causes it to wane. Love is when you no longer see yourself as the other, separate from, better or less than, etc. When you act as love, you give permission to the world to thrive and grow as it will. Can you let go of what is not love and ask, what would love do? Love is waiting for you always and forever. We just adore you over here. Yeah, I feel like that's the common ground. Love is the common ground. Love is the answer. Yeah, this is beautiful. I feel like that's that mic drop. Like, it just is so good. The energy in this one's amazing. Amazing. So thank you for showing up and bringing your energy to this. If this resonated, please give it a like and subscribe. I hope it was helpful. If it was, give it that thumbs up. And thank you for joining me here. If you're joining me for my subscriber base, and even if not, thank you so much, but especially for my subscriber base, thank you. And as always, wherever this finds you on the time space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night, I hope it finds you very, very well, my friends. Take care.